Greetings, everyone. It is a gray, nasty-looking afternoon here in the southeast. Thank you for tuning in for another short segment of Georgia Public Radio. Man, crazy stuff happened last night. A Gaza ceasefire plan has been announced. It should have stopped, Israel should have stopped its bombing of the Palestinian people today. And it's crazy. It was a 20-point plan. A lot of things haven't been fleshed out yet. Who's going to lead the Palestinian people in Gaza if Hamas does end up disbanding? What assurances the Palestinian people have for protection? If this is just all facade. To me, I have very little faith in this ceasefire beyond the amount of time it takes for the Israeli hostages and prisoners of war to be delivered back to Israel. I don't know, maybe this is just my own cynicalness and my own complete distrust for the Israeli government and the IDF. I feel like as soon as the last of the hostages and the POWs and their remains are on Israeli soil, they're going to claim there's a violation of the ceasefire somewhere, have an immediate stop of releasing any Palestinian prisoners, and resume the full onslaught, full genocide, and full ethnic cleansing of Gaza. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in this long term, unless Palestine is able to have a standing army without interference from Israel, and they have their ports reopened, and they have flow of goods and people between them and Egypt and throughout the Mediterranean. I don't think any peace plan as it stands is going to work. So we'll keep that how it is, and let's get into what NPR is talking about in GPB.
So sometimes it's grass-fed, but one of the increasingly popular versions of premium butter is actually this European-style butter that has a higher percentage of butterfat. In Europe, butter has to be at least 82% butterfat. In the US, it's at least 80%. But companies that make butter started making these higher butterfat butters for chefs, and they were really popular. And so word got out, and people started asking for them at a retail level. And now more and more US butter makers are now making these products that are creamier, a little bit fattier, and sometimes have flakes of sea salt in them.
Oh, yum. Wait. So just give people an idea. When we're talking about this fattier, creamier butter, sometimes with flakes of sea salt, what are some of the prices out there? Give people an idea.
If you're talking about French or Irish butters, they are more expensive than your standard supermarket butters.
Sure.
So you might be paying $10 for half a pound or more. But there are also some artisanal butters in the US that are really expensive. There is a $60 a pound butter from a place called Animal Farm Creamery.
Oh my God.
That's expensive.
And that's really due to the fact that they have a very small herd of cows, and therefore there's a much smaller supply of this prized milk that's going into this butter. So it's really
hold on, who is buying $60 a pound butter?
I think for these people
who probably make double what I make
this butter is part of the fun. I spoke with one gentleman who it took him 3 times to successfully purchase the butter because it sold out so fast. And the 3rd time he was so intent on getting his order through that he was boarding a plane and he held up traffic to make sure that he indeed got the butter.
I was going to ask you, have you tasted the $60 butter? Is it truly better?
I regret to inform you, I have not tasted the $60 butter. I did taste the $10 butter. It was delicious.
Well, what do you think all of this says to you about our food habits, maybe even our emotions as we're grocery shopping?
Butter's pretty good.
I think it does indicate that there's some bigger eating changes afoot. There's been a real shift away from the low-fat diet, and there's also been a swing away from ultra-processed food. In the 70s, margarine was really popular.
Totally. I grew up on margarine.
Yeah, same
now
for me.
consumers are
I
looking
don't think
for
I had
something
real butter in the
with
fridge
a
till I was like
clean
16.
label, and butter is just cream and salt, so it's really a short ingredient list. It feels like an uncomplicated, unprocessed food to people. So I think those are all elements of it. And also, butter makes things taste good.
Oh, it totally does. That is Bloomberg reporter Christina Peterson speaking to us about her.
I try and we have I guess you say the good butter, that Irish grass-fed butter you can get from Ireland. I was just redundant. And then we have the normal butter that you get from the store, all salted, because I like salted butter. And I don't have to add as much salt manually. So maybe that's laziness. Also, it lasts longer. But yeah, so we have our regular butter, the store brand butter. Then we have the Irish butter. So I use Irish butter for toast and things that I want to taste extra good. And then we have the regular butter for normal baking, or if I'm just using it to cook meat in the pan, like chicken or something, or put it over pasta. So that does help with having nice ingredients and then just having utility ingredients.
The word pumpkin has roots in the English word pompion, according to Fiona McPherson. She's an executive editor with the Oxford English Dictionary.
The first example that we have of pumpkin is from 1647, and it's partly with reference to the poor diet of early settlers.
Pumpkins are part of the genus Cucurbita. Logan Kistler says that in pre-colonial times, indigenous people in the Americas domesticated early pumpkins. They even used gourds as fishnet floats.
So there's what we call pumpkin, what we recognize as pumpkin, originating all throughout the Americas, going back as far as about 10,000 years in Mexico.
But Fiona McPherson says that soon after English speakers started using the word pumpkin, it became an insult.
1680, we see an example of it being used applied contemptuously to a person who's a bit conceited or self-important or stupid.
By the late 19th century, pumpkin got a glow up. It became a term of endearment for kids, and as cities grew, so did Americans' nostalgia for rural life. Here's Cindy Ott.
They like to imagine themselves farmers at heart, many of them, and a pumpkin has been a way to maintain those connections. So that's when the pumpkin became the pumpkin. It's a cultural history and not a botanical one.
Today, the story has a twist. Descendants of the same pumpkins that once sustained indigenous civilizations and early settlers are now supporting small farmers. Think of your local pumpkin patch.
But it's actually helping to rejuvenate the small family farm. Without the pumpkin, most small-scale farmers would have to do something else.
You might even call it a rescue by the great pumpkin. Bill Chappell, NPR News.
I do love a good pumpkin. I wish I could grow pumpkins where I'm at. For some reason, I get these little squash bugs. Every time I try and grow any cuber, that Tasty you're talking about. Squashes, pumpkins, anything in that family, just eats them up.
Republicans in the U.S. Senate continue to spar over a funding resolution to end the government shutdown. House members are back in their districts defending their positions. JPB's Sarah Cowles reports.
We're not opposed to
Democratic U.S. Representative Lucy McBath says her party will not budge on their position on health care and the Affordable Care Act.
We're going to stand our ground.
Stand
We
for
want the
something.
American people to understand and know that we're there fighting for them.
Republican U.S. Representative Mike Collins says the health care debate is secondary.
This is not about a healthcare fight. This is about funding the government. That's it.
The federal government shut down on October 1st. When
Yeah,
Congress could not
the ACA is a
on
government
bill to
program.
extend ACA subsidies. Without subsidies, the cost of many policies will more than double. For GPD News, I'm
Yes,
Sarah Cowles.
remember, open season isn't in November for most, for all health insurance in America, including ACA, Affordable Care Act provided health insurance. Like, open season is November, and specifically for the ACA, it's November 1st, which means these subsidies need to be approved before November 1st, so people know what the hell they're paying for when January 1st comes along. So anyone who says this is a January problem, they're wrong. This is 100% a right now issue.
On Capitol Hill, the Senate has failed for the 7th time to advance a House-approved funding bill that would end the government shutdown. Democrats continue to hold out, demanding an extension of expiring health insurance tax credits for about 24 million Americans and the reversal of recent Medicaid cuts by the administration. President Trump, speaking from the White House today, continuing to threaten what he calls Democrat programs without specifying what would be targeted if the shutdown continues.
We'll be cutting some very popular Democrat programs that aren't popular with Republicans, frankly, because that's the way it works. They wanted to do this, so we'll get a little taste of their own medicine.
What?
Meantime, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson faced a tearful caller on C-SPAN today who said her family needs
rural workers
military pay and told Johnson he could be the one to stop
having health
the UN
insurance.
Secretary General says the United Nations is ready to do its part to build on what he calls, quote, a desperately needed breakthrough in Gaza. And as NPR's Michelle Kelman tells us, he's praising President Trump and regional leaders.
Secretary General Antonio Guterres describes the deal as a glimmer of relief for Israelis and Palestinians. Under the agreement, Hamas and other militant groups will release the remaining hostages they've been holding since they attacked Israel 2 years ago. Israel will pull back and allow in aid, and that's where the UN fits in.
We have the expertise, the distribution networks, the community relationships in place to act. Supplies are in place, and our teams are on standby.
And Guterres says the UN has food, water, and other supplies ready to go into Gaza. Michelle Kelman, NPR News.
It has to be UN. It has to be actual humanitarian aid programs and organizations getting that aid in there. We can't do it through Israel because they've already proven that they will waste the food or they'll sell it to ISIS-affiliated militant groups.
There's more information about the toxic plume that they ran into, and we can tell within 5 or 10 seconds what the chemicals are, what the concentrations are. That tool was never used. That story coming up in about 10 minutes here on All Things Considered.
We probably won't get to that one, but that was
GPB
that was a plane. I listened to a version of the story earlier today while I was driving in, where they have this plane up in Atlanta that they can fly, and it will track the chemical plume, you know, what's in it and what direction it's going. But it wasn't used for the biolab fire in Conyers, which it really would have helped doing targeted evacuations of neighborhoods and businesses and help first responders, you know, ingress into the fire and the chemical disaster.
Releasing the last 48 hostages. We'll bring the latest developments on the deal, the next morning edition from NPR News. Tune into Morning Edition tomorrow morning from 5 to 10 here on GPB. A wall panel manufacturing company has closed its residential business manufacturing plant in Macon. Nichihha USA told state officials today that the closure will end jobs for 171 people. The company says some of the plant's operations will move to Nichihha's other Macon facility, which focuses on commercial business. And athletic clothing producer Augusta Sportswear is closing its facility, resulting in 93 job losses. The private equity firm bought the almost 50-year company in 2024, signaling trouble.
Gross.
The 2 recent layoff announcements bring the total such notices endorsed to more than 13,000 so far this year, twice as many compared to the same span last year.
That's rough.
GPB's All Drive is underway.
Yeah, donate GPB. No, it feels like this economy is definitely going to start turning, and the measures that bigwig economists, neoliberal economists look at are going to finally start reflecting what everyday Americans have been feeling with inflation, with wage stagnation, with just existence becoming so expensive, and the only thing cheap is distractions. Having a phone can be both expensive and cheap, but you can get YouTube, you can get entertainment so easy to distract you from how shitty life can be. But just existing in a home, renting an apartment can be so expensive. Buying the food you need can be heartbreaking, and paying for insurance just in case you get hurt or sick, so you can keep working, is just economically debilitating for each individual person. So, I mean, really the only thing that's been pushing this this economy, which is really the stock market ahead, I feel like, is the knowledge that American companies can raise prices to match tariffs and stock buybacks by CEOs and huge companies. And then finally, this AI bubble that is definitely happening, because AI is not going to do everything that they promise, because it's just a glorified Google search and email editor. And even if it did work the way they wanted it to, that would displace a bunch of American jobs and would cause another economic disaster. So it's either going to be the stock bubble, the overvaluation of everything popping, crashing the economy because we have no real industry, or we have no nationwide industry here in America anymore. It's just all this tech crap. That's the only growth that we have is AI for big growth, and you can see that in the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. And everything else is shrinking, but it looks like everything's going up because the overvaluation of AI initiatives is outweighing real economic decline, jobs being lost, people getting laid off, purchasing going down. So keep that in mind for the coming months and coming years.
Some key moments from today's hearings.
So in the Oregon case, DOJ prosecutor Eric MacArthur was representing the federal government, and he announced his arguments by saying that the Portland protesters were violent people, and that there is a major risk of future violence if the government puts their guard down. And Oregon Assistant Attorney General Stacey Chapin, who's arguing to block the deployment, says courts can give the president a lot of deference in his judgments, but she says
that deference has a limit, and that limit is this case, where the president's determinations are untethered from reality.
And Chapin said the judges should focus on whether the current situation in Portland can justify sending troops in, and that the judges should not consider events from earlier this summer. And that's when protesters forced an ICE facility in the city to shut down for a few weeks. But at least 2 of the judges just didn't seem to buy that argument.
Okay, so that's Portland. Tell us about Chicago.
And in Chicago today, there was a similar focus. Eric Hamilton, the attorney for the U.S. Justice Department, said the president's decision to send troops basically can't be challenged or reviewed. And Chicago public media reporters were in that courtroom, and they reported on this interesting moment when U.S. District Judge April Perry acknowledged the seriousness of threats facing public servants like ICE agents and those National Guard troops. And she said she started getting threats about 10 minutes after getting assigned this case. And it's worth noting Judge Perry is planning to reconvene at 4:30 local time, so we might have an update in that case later today.
Well, can we talk about the larger implications here, Jacqueline? Like, how might today's proceedings impact these kinds of cases overall, you think?
Yeah, so at the center of these cases is this much bigger question, just how far does presidential power really go? Are there limits? And University of Houston law professor Christopher Marasola said this is not just about National Guard deployments. It's an issue that continues to come up in other legal cases, including some that have gone before the Supreme Court.
It's really at issue in the cases about sanctions, about presidential immunity. It's this larger trend that I think is coming to define the current Supreme Court. Okay. Okay, so what can we expect next?
Now we're kind of waiting. Legal scholars like Mirasola said these judges will likely take their time to consider the arguments, but he thinks maybe we can see something in the next 24 to 48 hours, maybe. But it's important in the long run that regardless of the outcome of these cases, either side will probably appeal.
Okay, that's NPR's Captain Diaz. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Leave it out there for the day. We got to remember that the Constitution is not a rule for, the people. It is rules for the government, and the limits on the government that's decided by the people. And this executive overreach is absolutely crazy, and it's very upsetting that the only forces within the government to be, the balance of power that our framers of the Constitution intended is, intermediate judges. So federal or district judges and some appellate judges, appeals court judges. Because the Supreme Court is just completely bought by this, idea that the executive is a monarch, that they have unlimited power and they can do whatever they want, they can break whatever they want, and then all they got to do is ask later. Break first, ask later. It's ridiculous. And our Congress is so fucking feckless right now and useless because of the cult of personality. And they're acting like, it's never going to change. There's never going to be another change of power with all this precedent giving the executive this extreme overreach or the ability to overreach. It's like they think that, someone from the opposing party or someone with some balls is going to attempt it on the other side. And, well, I mean, with the way that the Supreme Court is, they've already shown themselves to be giant flip-floppers on these topics. They will flip and they will make up precedent and they'll read things that never existed out of thin air to allow Trump to do whatever the fuck he wants. Just look at the whole national injunction case. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Because the courts are the balance on the executive for real-time issues, and Congress is supposed to be the check on the executive for legal frameworks. What he can and can't do with the money that's appropriated by Congress and the regulation of his individual agencies, and putting space between regulatory agencies and the influence of politics. So it's gross. It's absolutely gross. I'll leave it there for the day. It is just nasty right now. It's starting to do that misty rain, and I am not a fan. But hope you all stay dry. Hope you'll have a good one, and I'll catch you later.